All right, another episode of Twin Stick Garage. Today I'm gonna pause my hunt and for the next project, and we're gonna start working on this old girl again. Can never have too many cold starts. It's not actually not that cold. I think it's just below zero. Oh, because I got the wrong key here. Come on. There it goes. Okay. Oh, it's cold. Nice. So today we're going to keep working on the little things. I actually took this truck to go pick my daughter up. She was at a birthday party, and I thought I'd pick her up with something cool. So I went and picked her up. That was last weekend, but it was awfully cold in here. So the switch for the fan had rotted out. So I bought a new switch. So at least I'm going to put that in today. So hopefully the blow a little warm air from the heater core, so it's not so cold to drive this truck around. And we'll put some other stuff on. Just kind of keep picking away at the little things, get this truck done before I actually jump into the next project. But you know, I'm just having too much fun doing this to stop now. So we'll finish this truck out, and we'll get going on another one. The missus let me. Oh, I love that sound. Nothing beats a straight pipe cab. So we'll let her warm up a bit, and then we'll put it in the garage and get started. Figure I better get this truck finished before I start dreaming about building another one. So we'll get going on the list of to-do items. I got a little more pretty picked up. I got the trims for underneath the cab there. I'll replace those ones where the lights are. And then I also got some mud flaps. I find every time I drive through my muddy yard, I got to get some more gravel, but it's on the list. But right now, every time I drive through the yard, I pick up so much mud on the tires, and then it flips it up on the boxes, and then the back tires flip it up back onto the back of the sleeper. And then on my beautiful shiny tanks, they're getting wrecked too. So we're gonna throw some mud flaps on the fender, and then on the battery boxes on front and back. So we'll fix that up. I've got myself a 7-inch grinder now. So I'm thinking I might tackle polishing the boxes myself. Just get the buffing wheels and the blocks and sand that all down and see if I can get that a little shinier. I had the tanks and the wheels done professionally, but I'm going to try and save a few bucks and do the rest of it myself. So I'll polish that up, and then if that turns out, I might polish the grill panels as well. And I'm trying to build up the confidence to tackle the bodywork myself. I know nothing about bodywork, but you know, like everything else on this truck that I've done myself, I figure why stop now? Learn as I go. I noticed Easy Rider was trying out some paint removal chemicals, which would be good because they get all these layers of paint off of here. This truck's been painted multiple times through the years, and if I get that all stripped off, that would clean that up. And then I was also thinking, if you've seen in an earlier episode, I did kind of a half-assed temporary fiberglass fix on the roof there on those rust holes. What I might do instead of putting a whole new cap on, because the rest of the cap's pretty solid, is to just cut out the holes, cut out the areas where I did the fiberglass patches, and then MIG weld in some new steel and clean all that up. That would be a little cheaper and I think a little easier than putting the whole new cap on. So we'll do that and just kind of keep picking away at it. I gotta finish painting the frame, priming and painting the frame up here. It's black up to the boxes and then it's blue, so I got to get all that painted up, and we'll mask off all the hoses and get some cat yellow, paint the engine, and just kind of keep getting closer and closer to the end on this one, and who knows, maybe we'll get going on another one. All right, so a while back someone commented and said, oh, don't put zinc bolts, just the regular cheap ones, on stuff that's going to be exposed to road salt and rain and all that. They said get some stainless. So I went to the Bolt Supply House, just an awesome group of folks there in West Edmonton, and picked up a ton of stainless. Now, stainless will be good. I'm going to use it for all the bolts for the mud flaps and the fenders and all that kind of stuff. See, there's the old rusty ones. But one thing he commented on, he said you can't necessarily just zip the nuts on like you can on a zinc bolt. They actually will hang up and almost weld themselves together, the nut to the bolt, especially if you use like an impact drive or something. So he said make sure you put some grease or some anti-seize on there before you bolt them off. So I wasn't aware of that, so I'm glad he told me. I just think that's kind of odd that you have to do that, but so be it. At least I won't have rusty nuts and bolts all over the truck 20 years from now. So, and the cost wasn't that much more. I was surprised. It's a little pricier, but I think it'll be worth it in the long run. Yeah, it certainly got a lot of colder here. Froze up last night. So it's nice to be in the garage at least, but it's still pretty fresh. So some of the people were asking, you know, how much do you have into this project? And I prefer not to say, but if you're interested in doing something like this, I would say that you take whatever you think you're going to spend, time and money-wise, and probably triple it, and you'll be close. One thing that I've discovered with these trucks is, oh man, everything is just on a whole other scale to restoring a car or a pickup truck, just because of the size. Oh. Alright. Hold that last. See if that lines up. Alright, I'm going to mark out some holes. Nothing's easy. Well, there you go. All mounted. A little bit of tweaking to make it all work, but got them in there. So now on to the next thing. Let's get the mud flaps put on the fenders. There. Got some mud flaps on the front fenders too. Yeah, I'm digging that. Looks good. So these aren't quite the right ones. They seem a little short and they don't wrap around like the original 359, so these might be off at 379. But I think they'll still work. I just need to decide, do I want the square edge at the front or the angle? And I'm thinking the angle probably looks a little better. So that's what, I think that's what we'll go with. All right, let's get them mounted in there. So one thing I was struggling with was, so stainless steel, especially the polished stuff's got these stickers on there. And these have been sitting for quite a while and it was near impossible to get those off of there. So I was just trying various stuff I had laying around the shop, and I tried this contact cleaner. And boy, this stuff is actually amazing. It softens the glue. I've seen it take old paint off of stainless and really freshen it up. So little tech tip for you there. So the tricky part is I can't really fit a drill here to drill new holes because it doesn't, the new panel doesn't line up with the same holes. So I'm using a die grinder with a drill bit. I know that's probably not how you should be doing it, but that's the only way that I can really fit in here. And it is aluminum, so it should still work. I think she'll get through though. There you go. That's how to drill in tight spaces. So there you go. One piece of shiny stainless. A little harder than I thought it was going to be, but I think it looks pretty sharp. So now we'll tackle the other side, which is going to be a royal pain because there's an air tank in the way. But We'll figure it out. I won't bore you with installing that. We'll get that done and then move on to something else. Actually, that wasn't quite as bad as the other side. It always amazes me that every time I do something on one side, you kind of learn how to do it. And as hard as it is, it always seems to go a little easier on the second side. And despite the fact that this was kind of tucked in with the air tank, it went on quite easily. So, a little contact cleaner to get all the fingerprints off of there. And there you go. Not bad. So I've been wanting for a while now to put on some of the sound deadening material behind the door panels. So we'll take these off here, and then we'll try and push that Noiko stuff in there and put some insulation as well. Try and quiet down the road noise and make it not so hot in the summertime. And then of course I'm going to replace all these screws, and we'll update that with some nice sheet metal screws to hold that on there a little better. So we'll get started on that right now. Alright, so that's what it looks like behind the door panel. This is your window regulator here, obviously the old school crank. And if you recall in that other video on the hunt, episode 2, there was a couple 379s that had power or air driven windows. So what that is instead of having a chain here, there's just the regulator that goes up and down, and it's on a long air piston, and it just applies air and slides it up, and then when you release it, it sucks it back down. So that would be nice to get if I can find that from a wrecker. I'd convert these to air windows, but for now they're just going to stay as the power cranks, hand power. So I got to peel all this old foam off of here, and then we'll clean it up and start putting on some of that insulation. All right, cleaned up best I could. Now I'll put one of these pages in here, and look at that. Almost the exact dimension. I think I need to trim this first one. Yeah, okay. So this is the same stuff I put on the floor, and we'll eventually put on the roof as well. I wonder if I should just take that backing off. Yeah, we'll see how well this stuff adheres to the panel when it's below zero. Hopefully it'll work. Okay. There. Just took a little bit of elbow grease, squish all the little bumps down, and it's on there real nice. So now I'm going to put on this insulation. Again, the same stuff I used on the floor. So we'll stick these guys on here. So this is for sound deadening. It kind of quiets it down. It's not so tinny. And then this will help keep the heat in the winter and the heat out in the summer. All right, one door quieted right down. So like most things with this truck, a lot of things are temporary until I can save up enough pennies. So I just painted these temporarily. I do want to get a whole new interior for this truck, door panels, roof, cab corners, and you can get the ones that were on here were pretty rotten, obviously from the holes in the roof, and then pretty tattered just from years of wear, and plus the cab or the sleeper is gray. So I'm going to get gray panels made up. There's a company out of the States called the Day Cab Company. They're going to probably make me a really nice custom kit, and he's going to give me a good deal on it. So I'm going to have to, like I say, save up my pennies, and then we'll get that interior made and put on these doors. So someone commented in a previous video when I was driving it and said this truck's got more rattles than a preschool, which I thought was humorous, but he's not entirely wrong. So I'm trying to find all things that could be buzzing or rattling, and I noticed this this door panel would vibrate. So I just thought, you know what? Why don't we put another sheet of sound deadening on there? I think that's gonna work good and keep it from buzzing as we go down the road. Well, every week she gets a little prettier. Now, a lot of people have been asking, what do you got into this project? And I can't even begin to estimate my hours. But I mean, it's a labor of love, so I won't count that. But you know, these you can find these old trucks, Kenworths or Pete's, late 70s, mid 70s, for usually under 10 grand. They may be running, they may not be. In most cases, the tires will be rotten, the air lines will be rotten. It'll have old fuel in it. But let's just assume that the most of the drivetrain is solid. Your transmissions, your motor. And you don't have to put work into that, because you can put tens of thousands into a new motor or a motor refresh, or getting, if you wanted to do a new 18 speed, you could spend 4 or 5 grand on that. Maybe you used an older one like a 15 or a 13 for a couple grand. So that's the drivetrain. Hopefully the diffs, if you were considering getting one, I mean, on my case, of course, I had to spend a pretty penny to get the third member redone at the gear center, and that was about 4-ish. New airlines, I probably spent, I don't know, 500 bucks on airlines and fittings. I didn't like the old tank, so I picked these up at an auto wrecker. I mean, if you shop around and you watch your pennies, you can do okay. You just keep going to wreckers until you find the right deal. But those are going to be at least a couple hundred each. In my cases, you might have leaking tanks. My tanks were, if you remember from earlier videos, were beat up all to hell. So I did new tanks. And that was, well, it was $2,000 on this side for a new tank, and then an old tank's about half of new. That's typical. What they charge at auto wreckers is about half of new. So I think I spent $1,000 on that tank, and then had them both polished. I wanted the big bands. I had those custom made. Those bands were about $1,000. You know, I picked up the sleeper for a couple grand. Exhaust, depending what you want to go with. You can probably spend as little as $1,000 on the exhaust, and if you want to go with the big 4-inch Dynaflex or Lincoln pipes, you could spend like 4 grand on that. Tires, like I say, in most cases the tires are going to be all rotten. I put new steer tires and new wheels, because the wheels were all corroded, and of course, if you have a blowout or a wheel let go on you on the back, you can probably ride it out, but not in the front. So I went with new on that. I think that was about $2,000 for that, for new tires and new rims. The back, I went with retreads. I could have bought, you know, Chinese tires for what I'm doing, just to pull a camper and drive this around as a toy. I think you can get them for about $300, $350 a piece. I paid $100 a piece for these because they're recaps, and I just watched the deal on Kijiji. But new tires could be up to $500 a piece. Times 8 starts to add up. The airbags in mine were rotten, so I needed new airbags. That was about $800, $200 a piece. What else? Just little odds and ends. Oh, new U-joints. I put U-joints in. Again, those are 50 bucks each. And I have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those. So that's 300 bucks. Brakes. Your brakes are likely going to be shot if you want to tackle an old project like this. Now the brake pots are cheap. They're like 40, 50 bucks each. And then the actuator, or the slack adjusters, another 40 or 50 each. But then you can start to spend big money if you got to get new drums, which I needed 4 new drums in this case. They'll be 200-300-ish. New brake shoes. And seals, you might spend another 300 or 400, 500 aside. So that's times 4. So it starts to add up. What else did I do? Oh yeah, the interior. So I was talking about the interior that I still need to do. So that's going to cost probably a couple thousand to get an interior done with interior panels. I put in these new seats and I'm getting dirty. Gotta clean them up. Seats can be upwards of almost $1,000 a piece if you want the fancy the air ride deals. Floor, probably spend another couple hundred on the floor. So you get the idea. It can add up. Luckily, the previous owner donated the air cleaners to me, so that was a good deal on that. Headlights and J brackets, probably another 1,000. Bumper, if you want to go with a big 18 or 20 inch drop bumper, is another 1,000. And you know, just the list just keeps going. So hopefully that gives you a sense of what you need to have saved up to tackle a project like this. But at the end of the day, it's all nuts and bolts. There's nothing on here too complicated. Now that said, I haven't had to touch the motor yet. I'm not a heavy duty mechanic. I'm just a backyard do-it-yourselfer that kind of figured it out as he went along. But yeah, I guess bodywork's the last thing that still needs to be done. And knock on wood, the motor stays together. And probably on the body, if I do it myself, maybe 2,000-3,000. If I took it in, it'd probably be about another 10. So hopefully that gives you a sense of what it is. But for for those that are interested in kicking around the idea of going after one of these projects, I say go for it. You only live once, and just an incredible sense of pride and joy when you drive it down the road for the first time. You know, I can't even walk by this truck without smiling at it. So I encourage anyone out there who wants to give it a try to give her a go and see what you can come up with. So with that, we'll conclude episode 45 little by little.